Welcome to the channel, everybody. Level M Diecast. And you know they say imitation is the sincerest form of flattery. We have quite the case of that today. We are going to talk about some golden wheels. This brand was established in 1989. Pretty popular throughout the 90s, not so much nowadays. They do still have some pressed steel type of cars, some pedal cars, some weird stuff like that. But this was, this was cheap diecast. This is... you can get this at obviously at KB toy stores. They had these at Dollar General, Family Dollar. They came in these little plastic boxes. So take this open and just show you what it's like. These are actually pretty decent boxes for being cheap. So the quality was actually pretty good for cheap diecast. They did have interiors in them. So there was an interior in there, which looks pretty good. The decos were not bad. This is 100% based on the Matchbox Ford Transit van. Obviously been modified because, of course, they can't steal it entirely. So there is some exclusivities to it. But this one is for USA News. Taking a look at the base here, you can see there is golden wheel diecast. There is the Deets, of course, made in China. This is a hallmark of the Matchbox base. The tank area here, and, of course, the spare tire in the back. They didn't roll all that well, but they weren't horrible. But like I said, the quality of the diecast was actually pretty good. They were stamped well. Tampos were good. Definitely wasn't ultra cheap, crappy plastic, which is pretty shocking. And these were super cheap, as you can see, 3 for $2. Very, very cheap. They also did some licensed decos. So have one for a FedEx livery here. This one also purchased from KB Toy Stores. The qualities of prints were average, not especially great on, fine details. That one where it was just spray on was pretty decent, but when you come into fine details like this, not that great. And of course, they only had like 1 or 2 different style of wheels. This one looks pretty good though, because they did have the extra print there in the window inside. So at least they put a little bit of effort into it. Not exactly fancy. I don't know what the number is. I don't think these were like necessarily numbered. They weren't necessarily considered collector's items or anything. They were cheap diecast. I don't think you can get any more of these nowadays, but I could be wrong. A couple more transits here. We'll just move through these relatively quick. This one, kind of the EMT. New York City Hospital and Health Center, it says on the side. See, the prints are not all that great, but they're okay. They're okay. I mean, at least we got prints on multiple sides of the model, which was definitely something that wasn't popular for super cheap diecast, especially for the price point of these, which were less than $1. So throw him up there, and then of course things. They did a step van, so. We do have this step van we'll take a look at. Kind of like one of those, kind of like a Chevy van, kind of like a Chevy delivery van from back in the day. See if we can get the plastic out. There we go. This is a different wheel, although I think this is the only time I've seen this wheel is on this particular model. It does say NYPD on the side. That is obviously not an exact NYPD deco because it is not licensed. But this one looks pretty decent. There's quite a bit of detail to it. Still has an interior. No opening parts or anything like that, but it does have a painted up rear door, which looks pretty good. Some marker lights on it. So they did invest some money into some spots. The bases are relatively crappy plastic, but the rest of it's pretty good quality. Definitely feel like these would break off relatively easily if you were, playing with them as a kid. But they were super cheap, so if they were broken, you could always just take your parents and have them take you back up to Dollar General and get a new one. All right, ML430. Again, this is another knockoff of Matchbox. That step van over there is not really a knockoff of anybody, as far as I know. But this is a knockoff of Matchbox. This one says Emergency Road Service. Kind of a 5-spoke wheel on there. Orange for the taillights, kind of an interesting choice of colors, but it does have paint for the ski racks at the top. Emergency Road Service on the front. Obviously not a official Mercedes logo in there, but it is 100% the ML430. Of course, still Golden wheels branded on the bottom. That one's okay. I don't really like the deco on that one. Throw that guy over there. All right, rolling with some Mercedes. They also did the E-Class. Again, this is another knockoff of Matchbox. 100%. These cars have an extra little piece of plastic in there to keep them from rolling around, which is actually a very, very high quality piece of plastic. You can see it's even molded to the base. Very, very interesting that they did that. This particular one in silver does have the same wheels that we started with. You can just tell by just the casting details. This is 100% Matchbox E-Class. They did modify the taillights just a little bit so that it's not an exact rip-off. Of course, the Matchbox one had a chrome grille on it, but not a bad version for being a knockoff. Base deets look pretty decent as well. Kind of like this one in silver. It's a very, very dull silver. It's been in this box for a really long time. You can tell. So I think it goes in here, that direction. I don't think it really matters which direction they go in there, but there is our ML, our E-Class, I should say. We'll take a look at one more E-Class. I do have a couple more E-Classes, but we'll just take a look at one more. This one in blue. This one should give a pretty good comparison to Matchbox. They did make a blue one, which looked pretty good. So there is a little comparo. Get our E-Class in there. I don't like the fact that the front bumper is part of the base, but of course they had to make it different a little bit just to make sure that they didn't get ripped off for or get in trouble for ripping off somebody else. You see that there is some marks in there where a light bar can be added in there. This one been filled in before painted. Hook assembly model does have just one rivet in the bottom. So not too shabby. I think that's actually a pretty decent casting. Might look pretty good with some details on it and maybe some real riders. And of course we have a dark forest green one. That one looks really good as well. Kind of actually looks pretty good with the chrome wheels on there. And then rounding out the E-Classes, we do have a golden one for golden wheels. Kind of a funny pun there for you. That's what they got up there. Now we do have one exotic. This is the F50. Again, this is a Matchbox knockoff. Of course, they did modify it just to make the assembly a little bit different. So just like the other cars, they do have an extra piece in there that it sits on. But you can definitely tell this is the Matchbox casting. It is large and wide. It is from the Tyco era. So of course, if they were going to rip it off, you can easily tell which F50 it's from. A little bit of detail on the back with some print for the taillights and exhaust tips. Of course, you can see the engine through there, which is exactly how the Matchbox one was done up. Matchbox did not have any A-pillars in the casting as well. So the only difference of this one is, of course, the front bumper has been mated to the base. So it makes it a different assembly than the Matchbox one. But, of course, all the same detail on the bottom. I get it. You are replicating a real car, an F50. There's going to be a lot of the same details, but I guarantee you dimensionally this would be pretty much exactly spot on with the Matchbox one. Although Matchbox didn't do an F50 in blue, so that would be something different. Put him back there on the wall. All right, some more car action. Of course, they did the Viper. Again, another Matchbox knockoff in blue. Do have a couple of colors. We'll just showcase this one, but I will show you what the other colors are. So again, just molded base on there. Looks pretty decent. There it is. There is the Viper, of course, exact mock from Matchbox, but they just make the bumper part of the base, so that makes it different. I don't like the way that that looks. Definitely doesn't make it look good. It looks terrible. The wheels look terrible too. They're just off-road style wheels, just terrible. But there is the base deets. A little bit of spare tire detail in the back. That is different from the Matchbox one as well. But other than that, it's pretty close. It's a teeny bit smaller than the Matchbox casting. But of course, you know, all these Chinese companies that knock off name brand diecast, they know exactly how to make it work and get away with it. And then, of course, we do have One in white with blue stripes, which is the opposite of that one. And then the last one, yellow with black stripes. That one looks the worst because the chrome just doesn't fit well. Now, something that is not a knockoff of Matchbox is going to be the Beetle. I do believe this particular Beetle may be an original casting for golden wheels. Definitely possible. It's pretty big. It's pretty big. It does have those same 5 spokes as the ML did. Yellow for the taillights, kind of an interesting choice. A little bit silver on the front. Interior in there as well. No suspension or anything on these things. And of course, there is your base deets. This is probably ripped off from somebody, but who knows? Maybe it could be an original Golden Wheels casting. Definitely takes up the entire box though, so it doesn't have to have that little insert piece in there. So crack that up. Put that back in there. The box is kind of a pain in the butt. And of course, a opposite one. This was a great bargain. Look at that, 59 cents. Super cheap. And then there it is in blue, which is the opposite of the red one. And then, of course, a pink one, just to be different. So throw those guys up at the top. Bing, bang, boom. Now, there's a couple, but this is one of the biggest rip-offs of Matchbox. This is the Tahoe Police. This is an exact, almost photocopy of the Matchbox version. However, I will admit these are actual decos. So that is actually for I think it's for Florida. So Florida Highway Patrol. It's an actual deco. Whether or not it's licensed, of course, is up for debate. Now, the only thing they changed on this casting was they did take away the window in the back, but the casting itself is exactly the same. The front end is exactly the same. The way it's assembled is the same. Light bar is a Matchbox light bar. This one in blue. This looks pretty good with the off-road wheels on it. No prints on the back because, of course, it has that extra color print on the top. And as cheap as they were making them, at some point they had to draw the line and say, hey, cannot do anymore. It does not have suspension, though. The Matchbox Tahoe, the original version of it, had tons and tons of suspension, which was pretty cool. It was actually one of the coolest things about that particular Tahoe. So there's Florida State Patrol. We have one more here. I'm not sure what the police department is. We'll see if it's licensed or not. It is State Patrol. So it looks like it might be... Oh, it's so small. Looks like Maryland. I think that is Maryland State Patrol. Yep, definitely Maryland State Patrol. So that's pretty cool. Of course, again, blue light bar. You can see that the blue didn't quite blend into all the plastic all that well. Because, of course, it's cheap. But this one looks pretty good in the State Patrol deco. A little bit of print for the headlights, just like the previous one. Those ones are actually not too bad. Not too bad. Throw some decent Real Riders on there, and you got a very, very nice custom for 1/64th scale. Now, they did a police car as well. We do have a few police cars. And as a matter of fact, the cool thing about what we have on the police cars, I do have a matching Maryland for the Crown Vic. Again, this is Matchbox ripoff. Exactly. Even down to where the hook is in the back for the assembly. Just the way that the casting is indented on the Matchbox one. There it is, the deets on the side. Of course, exactly the same as the Tahoe. So that's kind of cool. No prints on the headlights. Matchbox ones had quite a few versions had prints on the front. They did a couple of premium versions as well. They did some Daru and some other ones like that. I think it may have lasted right at the very end of the Premier series as well. So we got some pretty good versions of the Crown Vic. And then, of course, they did a new Crown Vic afterwards. So just kind of put that guy there. Rolling through a couple other ones we'll just go through. That is a very old school KB tag. Look at that. It is printed like from one of those print guns. That's nuts. Very, very old one. So check this guy out. Oh, this guy has that little plastic piece on the bottom. They must have got rid of those afterwards. A little bit yellowed in there. There is the other deet. Look at this one. This one is for Pennsylvania. So it's a Pennsylvania State Patrol. which looks pretty good in white. The deco prints actually look pretty decent. You can actually read those, which is pretty nice. A little bit of print on the light bar, which looks decent. Other than that, it's the exact same deco, or exact same model, I should say. I guarantee these were not licensed, but I mean, I don't really feel like the police department was going to chase them down and try to sue them, but I could be wrong. And of course, NYPD, this is a much, much better representation than the van that we looked at previously. This one actually has the actual correct layout, at least for the NYPD. 68th Precinct, 2392 it shows. Patrol Supervisor, courtesy, professionalism, and respect. They did a pretty good job. There's the shield there on the quarter panel. It says police. No decos on the top. But this one looks pretty decent as well. You definitely would need to paint the bumper because it looks ugly. But again, these are pretty decent knockoffs to do some customs, which is not something you get too often. Usually when you have the cheapies, they take a ton of work. Chicago. So throw that guy in there. We have Chicago. This one has a little bit of print on the trunk as well. It says non-emergency number and then emergency 911. That one looks pretty decent. 8803 is the number. Little shield in the back for CAPS, I think is their acronym. We got all the heavy hitters. Of course, we got the California Highway Patrol as well in black. That one looks pretty decent as well. That one looks pretty good because, of course, the black bumper just blends in. So they look to have all the exact same print on the light bars, which is a little bit of a bummer. And then the last one here, we do have one more Florida State Patrol. So we do have matching ones, although the color on this one is completely off compared to the Tahoe. They are dramatically different. So that's just what happens when you have cheap diecast. So kind of throw those, make some space. Just throwing some stuff around. Now, I got one last model for you. There's two different versions here. This is the Ford F-150. Again, this is a Matchbox knockoff. Exactly. This one's kind of cool. It does have a little addition in the bed of the truck that we're going to take a look at. Throw this guy out. So I was hoping that was metal, but that is plastic. It's just really good plastic quality. Number 9 on there says special equipment. City of Golden Wheel. City of Golden Wheel. Very, very funny. All right. First aid on there. Ambulance. Looking pretty decent. There is the deets on the bottom. 100% F-150 knockoff. You can totally tell just the whole model itself, the small scale. Matchbox's F-150 was very, very, very small in scale. But this one looks kind of cool. Kind of like the little cargo thing in the back. It looks pretty cool. Thought it was metal, but it's just plastic. It's just really, really nice quality plastic, which is pretty good. So not something you see, again, from knockoffs. But we got one more, which is what we're going to roll out with. And I can never get this closed. There we go. This is the biggest knockoff of them all. If you are a Matchbox fan, you already know. You already know. This deco is iconic with the GMC record. They've done a couple of different versions of it. There's been a metal base, plastic base, number variation on it. There's been print variations on the hood stripes on the Matchbox version, but I mean exact 100%. Now they do call it Frank's Golden Towing, which Matchbox didn't do. But they put golden towing on there. It doesn't make it not a ripoff. It's still 100% ripoff, but the tow apparatus moves back here. A little bit of print on the lights. Obviously, it doesn't tow. It doesn't do anything. Doesn't move down. Again, pretty good plastic quality in there as well. Well attached. Just absolutely ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. It's the most ridiculous knockoff Golden Wheels I've ever seen in my life. This is the first time I ever found this. I found this today, and I just couldn't believe how much of a ripoff that was. Look at that. exact. It's just exact. So there you go. A little bit of Golden Wheels knockoff for you. Kind of cheap diecast, kind of not cheap diecast. But, you know, like I said, those who want to be the best imitate the best. And they definitely did it here. So drop a comment. Let me know what you guys think about that. Always like to do something a little bit different on the channel. Glad to be back in the studio. So we'll see you guys later. Level 'em diecast.